Hi, welcome to the Azorean Cuisine with Edna. I'm your host, Edna Cabral. Today I'm going to make this soup. It's called Fervedouro or Azorean Kale Soup. The ingredients are a bunch of collard greens chopped, 1 pound of pork bones with some meat in it, 1 tablespoon of crushed Portuguese pepper or pimenta molida, half a cup diced pork belly or 3/4 cup smoked bacon, 3 slices about, 3 medium diced potatoes, 6 cups of chicken stock, salt to taste, and 1 heaping teaspoon of lard. And don't forget the cloves as well, and the onion cut in half. So back then, people would have their pigs, like I mentioned before, and they would use every part of the pig, so nothing went to waste. They would use the bones, they would salt the bones along with other pork meat as a form of preservation. Back then there was not a fridge. So for the soup, you could use, they would use the salted bones, but I did a marinade or a vignettage. So I got the bones and also some extra pork meat, and I used the crushed red pepper, the 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, and I diced the garlic, put everything in a pan, and let it marinate overnight. You can add salt if you'd like to, but be careful because usually the pepper is already salted. So here I have the bones. I put in a pot, cover them with water or cover them with your chicken stock, and we're gonna let it simmer, or if you're in a rush, boil for about 30 minutes or until the meat is tender and falling off the bone. So let's do it. You can always have a glass of Porto wine, no matter what time of the day. So on to our next step. I have the potatoes. I'm gonna peel and dice the potatoes while the bones are cooking. And I got a bunch of collard greens at the store. Sometimes they're not the freshest ones, like when you pick them out of your garden. But it's the middle of the winter, and in New England, we don't have collard greens growing in our garden. So you have to do with what you have available. These leaves are, as you can tell, yellowish, but it's okay. I'll use them for my chickens. So I'll use the best ones that I have here, and I'm going to chop the kale and get it ready to put in the pot along with the onion and the garlic and the bacon or pork belly. I couldn't find any pork belly this time at the supermarket. I'm sure if I went to the Portuguese store in New Bedford or Fall River or one of those Portuguese communities, I would most likely find it. But I'm glad that I got 2 tubs of lard at the Portuguese store. So, oh my gosh, smells so good. It smells like torresmos, but the soup is very lean. So if you add the lard 1 or 2 tablespoons, it will not hurt you, and it will make the collard greens tender as well. While I have the bones simmering, I will prepare the other ingredients. The potatoes. I already have the bacon diced in about 10-inch cubes not cubes, but about an inch. So as a point of reference. The garlic, you can have it whole, or you can dice it, crushed it. I like to have it whole, cut it in half so that I can scoop it up later on. And as I said before, I like to use a lot of garlic. It's so good for your body as well. I'm dicing the potatoes, and again, you want some potatoes to be small chunks, so that way it can dissolve in the broth and get a little bit of creaminess to the Fervedouro. So with Fervedouro, it's a rustic soup. It's not creamy. You have a very distinct broth that is not creamy at all, like some other soups. If you have some potatoes that dissolve in the soup, that's fine, that's okay. You want to have some that you big chunks that you would bite into. I cover the potatoes while they're waiting with some water, otherwise they will turn brown. They oxidate and turn brown. I'm chopping the kale, but just to make sure that I have the stem and these little other branches or stem. It's not a branch, it's not a tree, but you know what I mean. But you can also go like this. I know nowadays they have they have all kinds of gadgets at the store that would do this for you. There you go. If you have 1, 2, 3 leaves, you can do this quickly as well. You see, no time at all. No time at all. While you do this, you can pretend that you're meditating, or maybe this will bring you back to your childhood, watching your mom do this. As I'm sure most of you know, kale is a superfood. Growing up, my mom would make us eat kale. Who knew that she was so right about our nutrition? Kale was a staple. Everyone had kale in their garden, or kale was at the stores on a daily basis. And if kale was not around, there was always a neighbor who would have kale in their garden. And the benefits of growing up in a small town, in a small community where everyone looks for each other, is to go to next door neighbor and ask if they have kale. Tás couves, vizinha? So when it became this superfood, I was curious to find out why is it such a superfood. And on my research, I found out that kale is very high in nutrients, low in calories, woohoo, great for whoever wants to lose weight. It's loaded with powerful antioxidants, extremely high in vitamin C. And do you know that 1 cup of raw kale has more vitamin C than 1 orange, and it doesn't have the sugar? It's low cholesterol, has vitamin K, high in beta-carotene, which in turn in your body produces the vitamin A, which is so needed, and a great source of minerals. And you can have them in your smoothies with other ingredients, and it's a perfect vegetable to have always in your fridge. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. I got a little bit carried away cleaning up the kitchen and getting dinner ready. And so now the bones and the meat, they're cooked. So I'm making sure that I get everything out of here. And I will get the rest of the ingredients. With bones, I like to use skimmer to make sure I get all the little, to make sure that there's no little bones there. I don't want it to be a hazard when you're eating your soup. There's no bones, we just have the broth. So in with the kale, the potatoes, and the bacon. Okay, we have the potatoes. I'm gonna crank up the heat so it can boil quickly. Onion, garlic, our kale. Again, this is the broth. It's something that you can do the night before, or when you're preparing a different kind of dinner, you can have one extra pot and start this. You can have the bones and the broth ready for this next step on the next day or even 2 days after. It would still be very good. I almost forgot the lard, so I'm gonna make sure that I put it in the broth. And here, you can put as much or as little as you want. It's your choice. That's a good thing. You have, when you make your own soups, you have control over all the ingredients that you can put in. And if you have allergies or a child with allergies, you know what you're eating. And it's safe for your family. I don't know why. This doesn't usually happen, but for the past times, I've been forgetting the salt. Soup will not taste good without salt. Nope. Oh. Okay. All right, let's see how it tastes. Might need a little bit more salt. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, it needs, yes. Yeah. I like to use kosher salt, and if you're using fine salt, the obviously you're gonna use less. But I like my kosher salt, and I get it at the Portuguese store too. Woohoo! What else is new? Okay, let's see. This is another clean spoon. Oh, much better. Yeah, you want your Fervedouro to be maybe a little bit on the salty side, but the salt brings up the wonderful taste of the collard greens. It's this soup, because it's very few ingredients, the taste of the kale, it's predominant. It's wonderful. Delicious. I'm gonna let it simmer for about 15 minutes, and then your soup is ready to eat. Now I'm letting the kale cook until it's tender. So now I'm gonna shred the meat, and you can serve it on the side in case some of you won't like to eat the meat. See, I think it could have cooked a little bit more if you want it to be getting off the bone easily. So it's been 40 minutes. I tasted the kale, and it still had a little bit of bitterness, so I let it simmer for 10 more minutes. if you don't mind that bitterness flavor, it's fine. Or if it's really bothering you, you can add just a tiny bit of sugar. That should help with it. I don't do it. So let's get our soup ready to eat. Oh, in the meantime, I took out the bones and the onion. So here we are. Do you notice how the broth is very liquidy? So it's supposed to be like this. And here you have your chunks of potato. The soup is now ready to serve. I hope you try it. Don't be afraid, and enjoy your soup. Bon appetit.